Good evening, everyone. I am Alex Winokur. I'm the Director of Enrollment Operations here at Fountain Valley School in lovely Colorado Springs, Colorado. So that was just a short little video. You might see it on TV. It's being advertised a little bit, also advertising our open house on October 18th. And I just want to say too that the voices in that video, in that little commercial, are our own students. So they did the voiceovers for that, which is kind of cool. But like I said, I'm Alex Winokur. I'm the Director of Enrollment Operations. Thanks for joining us for tonight, which will be a good open discussion about the ninth grade curriculum, kind of what we do at Fountain Valley, how it helps the students, how the faculty set it up. So you'll learn all kind of things. We have four great panelists, two faculty and two students. Two students are current 10th graders. So they went through the ninth grade curriculum last year, which is great. That's all my contact information if you want to get in touch with me. Just a little bit about Fountain Valley for those of you who don't know it very well. We are co-ed, boarding day and international school, somewhere around 240 students, depending on the year, fluctuates a little bit higher, a little bit lower. That's a general about a 20-year average. 70% boarding, 30% day, and we are 25% international students. And so all of our student body comes from about 20 states and 26 countries as of this year. We are the #1 boarding school in Colorado, one of the top boarding schools in the Western boarding school areas. So everything California all the way up and down to Canada and all the way down to New Mexico, Arizona. Those are our dorms. So those are a couple of our dorms, what's called the Village, which is where the two freshman dorms are, as well as a 10th, 11th, 12th grade dorm. So speaking of dorm rooms, because you probably want to see them. So this is a typical dorm room. Our dorms are either 2 or 3 people in them if you're interested in boarding. Even if you are a day student, which one of our panelists is a day student, you get associated with a dorm. But I want to jump into what we're doing here tonight. So what we're doing is we're talking about the 9th grade curriculum. Our curriculum is very focused, and it's very focused per year. So our 9th grade is focused on the West. We'll talk about that a little bit. Our 10th grade is global societies, which is really exciting. So we first start with what we are and where we are, the place we are, everything here, Colorado, United States. And then 10th grade, we go global. So we go out to the rest of the world. And, some of the exciting parts about the 10th grade curriculum will be in the next webinar, which is in October. So check the fvs.edu/events page for that. And in that, we'll talk about what it looks like to be global societies, as well as things like interim trips, where every single one of our students goes on an international trip, which is pretty cool. Then we go to junior year, which is leadership based, and senior year, which is capstone based. But I'm going to stop my screen share there and bring in the other panelists. So like I said, we have 2 faculty members and 2 students who went through everything last year. So I'm going to just go roundabout and they're going to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Miss Jessica Smith. So just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what you teach, anything else you'd like to share.
My name is Jessica Smith. I'm Director of Experiential Ed, and I teach geology, freshman ecology, and exercise phys in the spring. Fountain Valley here for a couple of years working on this curriculum. It's very exciting. I'm happy to be here and answer any questions you have about your 9th grade curriculum.
Cool. Thank you, Jessica. So I'll go to the other faculty member, so Mr. Kean McGillicuddy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kean McGillicuddy. I am a science teacher here at Fountain Valley School. I also teach 9th grade ecology as well as advanced environmental science to 11th and 12th graders. I am also the assistant varsity basketball coach here and do outdoor education.
Nice. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to go how it is on my screen. So I'm going to go with one of our students, one of our 10th graders, Annabelle Cabinets.
Hi, I'm Annabelle Cabinets. I'm a 10th grader and yeah.
She's a day student. I got you. I got you.
Sorry.
Okay. And our final panelist here is Sam Mahan.
Hi, all. I'm Sam Mahan. I'm from Edmond, Oklahoma, 10th grader living in Penrose West, one of the complexes on campus.
And you can see Sam is really living the Fountain Valley life, is outside in the nice weather out in the dorms there in the back. So if you hear anything like that, that's what it is. So let's jump right into the questions here. And for you all who are on the call, please feel free to put in any kind of Q&A or anything as we go through things. We'll come back to it at the end, or if it's in the middle and I kind of see it, I'll stop us and we can kind of go with it if it's relevant to our discussion. But let's start with Jessica Smith and Kian. So you two talk a little bit about like the larger structure, and Jessica, you're kind of the 9th grade coordinator, and you just came back from really cool things that we did at the beginning of the year. So talk about the larger structure of the program and kind of the why behind what we do for 9th grade. And we'll go to Kian because I think Jessica is frozen.
Okay, might be a little bit frozen. Yeah, so I think the 9th grade program is incredibly exciting. As a teacher, it's really, really cool and enjoyable to be able to work on our 9th grade curriculum and develop it. One of the focuses of the 9th grade curriculum is place and place-based learning. And the why is that we have so many different students that come from so many different backgrounds. Some are from here in Colorado, and some are from all across the world. So in the 9th grade year, we get an opportunity to share all of the amazing history, the natural beauty, and kind of all of the amazing and interesting things that we have, more broadly in the West and also just right here on our campus. I don't know if Alex mentioned this, but we have about 1,000 acres here that we can play around on as a science teacher. It is so cool. It is so fun to just be surrounded by a beautiful place, but also be situated on a campus that, has different water sources, has different little ecosystems that we can use as a classroom. And so I think Jessica can certainly add to this, but the focus is learning about place and where we are, as well as learning how to think systematically, and thinking kind of more broadly about themes and systems and how not just, one piece of information exists, but how all the different things that we learn really tie together.
And Jessica, being a troubleshooter that you are, quickly switched around and got you back to unfrozen. So Keen was just talking about the place-based, the systems-based learning a little bit, being very intentional with the land and everything like that. So feel free to add whatever you'd like about kind of the structure of the 9th grade program, some of the logistics, and a little bit of the why behind, you feel we teach the way we do for our students.
Yeah, I think part of it is just the using this idea of concrete experience, getting kids out into the field, making them the scientists, gathering the data, making observations, and then try to nesting the content learning within that context of the experience. And then again, I missed some of this. There are a number of like field work and field trip opportunities that kids are involved in so that they can kind of be that scientist gathering that data. And then when we start to talk about content and specifics and cellular respiration and photosynthesis, that they're looking at that in this big picture of how living and non-living things interact. And kind of to circle back to what Kian said about systems-based thinking and learning how to identify and create systems to help see like the true reason behind why we have and see certain outcomes, whether they're negative or positive, but being able to diagnose some of that on their own. And I think just kind of starting with the macroscopic and working from the big down to the small, and just seeing how how complicated and how multivariant science is on a whole.
Great. Thank you very much. So Sam, in connected with that, we're talking about it's not just science, obviously it permeates all subjects, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but specifically talking about what Ms. Smith and Mr. McGillicuddy were talking about there, talking about ecology of the Western landscape and how that affects our culture and our view and everything. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel that really connected for you during 9th grade year, especially considering your, connection to Native American background?
So yeah, a lot of stuff we did on campus was really interactive. I was lucky enough to be both in Miss Smith and Mr. McGillicuddy's class during my 9th grade year, so I got to see both of them teach, which is really cool. And obviously, I got to see Mr. McGillicuddy get really nerdy about bugs, which was really funny and really cool. But we went down to the pond a few times. We have a pond on campus. It was really cool. We went like net fishing for macroscopic organisms, and that was really cool to see. Like I grew up as a lake kid, and I had no idea that's what I was swimming in, and so that was like it was kind of interesting to like learn all that kind of stuff. And then also the prairie. We went on walks out in the prairie, and we'd like see what we could find, whether it was plants or organisms. It's really cool on campus. But in terms of like curriculum, we've had a few field trips, and one of them we went to, oh, I'm blanking on the name, but we went to the Sand Creek Massacre site, and we learned we had a lot of lead up to that. We had a lot of learning that was involved in that, and we got to see the site in which it happened, and it was like when you step on that land and you know what happened there, it's like a sunken feeling in your stomach. And it's really interesting because being from Native American background, I do a lot of Native American traditions. My uncle, my second cousin, I mean, was the president for the Osage tribe. And I had no idea about most of the stuff I learned about freshman year. So it was really interesting to learn the different things that I had no idea about. They connected me not only to Colorado, which is amazing, but it also like connected me to a place back home where I got to learn more about my own state, which I never thought I'd do. And then it's exciting me, or that's not English, but it's fine. But I'm excited for this 10th grade year because now that I've gotten to know more about where I'm at right now, I'm gonna learn about other places around the world and get to know them in a deeper level than I knew them in the first place. And that's really awesome to me.
Great. Thanks so much, Sam. Appreciate that response. And going with that, I'm going to go to Annabelle now, and because everybody gets to talk in a moderated panel session. And I just want to hear from you, Annabelle, a little bit about, Sam was talking about culture and things he learned, both, from their own culture and then from Oklahoma and Colorado and everything. So for you, kind of talk about how your 9th grade year helped you to understand conflicts that happen in the United States, the expansion in the United States, and then if you could, and I can reiterate this because I'm going to stack the questions, talk about how that was different than how you learned in elementary and middle school.
Well, I think for me personally, I really struggled with the whole concept of really understanding like Colorado. And when I would go on field trips and stuff, you look at the names of the roads in Colorado and it says something in Navajo or Cheyenne or one of the many tribes that are local from Colorado. And I kind of glazed over it. I didn't really think on it. I just, had like an idea. I was like, oh, Native Americans, this was their land originally, but I didn't really fully grasp any of that. And like in elementary school, middle school, I totally didn't grasp that. I only thought of the US as being started in the Declaration of Independence. And I was only briefly taught about pilgrims and Native Americans and Thanksgiving. So I had like a brief idea, it was very, very small. But then when you start to understand, like, I know I had Mr. Haupt as a teacher, and he got into the nitty gritty of like everything that goes on, and you hear these stories and it's so tragic. And it just, I mean, you really like fully grasp like the enormity of what the US did to Native Americans. And like us as a boarding school, I think it's like really like special that we get to understand, because boarding schools, they subjugated Native Americans and, put them into these like harsh conditions and in a way of like eradication. And it's just like this whole thing where like there's a lot of guilt. And I think that we had two Native American girls who came to speak to us last year, and they just graduated. But they, I think that Fountain Valley's trying to like work back and try to play their part into helping others and making it more aware of Native American culture and everything that, we can do as a society to, help understand and not just like go over it, and like to remember the past. And so I think that like, where I did not learn things in elementary and middle school, Fountain Valley has taught me more than enough about it. And I think that I would not say like I'm like an expert in the field, but I feel like I have like a really good understanding of everything that goes on in Colorado specifically and around the US. And it kind of relates to things that I'm learning about now, even in like world societies. And everything has in a place at Fountain Valley, and I feel like I'm more knowledgeable in that field than I did.
And that's interesting too. So in full transparency, I was a history major in college, and the things you're talking about are things I didn't learn until college. And that, history is what history is, and things happened, and we're going to teach all the things that happened and all the why things happened and the different perspectives and who wrote history and, all of that kind of thing. And then how the land and the place and everything affected all of the above. And that's honestly, I went to a private school, and that's something I didn't learn until the college level. So it's great that you're learning it now. So Jessica and Kian, talk a little bit, and either of you two, you can ping off each other on this. So for those of you who don't know, we have what we call the class of 1969 Mountain Campus, which is about 40-acre property in Bona Vista, which is by Salida, Colorado. It's about 2.5 hours-ish from our campus. It's, for lack of better term, it's a giant cabin that can house about 100, 150 people, something like that. And we use it at least once to twice a year. I think this year it's going to be about twice a year per class, plus for other things, for astronomy, because it's a dark sky space, for our ski trips sometimes to spend the night, things like that. But we do something called the Western Immersion Program. And this just happened. So Jessica and Kian just came back from it. So if you can talk a little bit about it, what it is, what the students do, and kind of, again, the why behind why we do it and why we do it at this time of year.
So you could go first, Kian.
Okay, sure. So yeah, the Western Immersion Program this year was awesome. It was really, really fun, and I love the Mountain Campus. I think it is a amazing resource for the school because it allows us to all get up into the mountains and see, some different ecosystems. I'm obviously talking from a science teacher perspective here, but I was super, super excited that for 2 days, I hosted a station on Little Cottonwood Creek where we discussed watersheds, and kind of riparian ecosystems. And then we got to sample some macroinvertebrates. Macroinvertebrates are essentially bugs that live in the water. And they're really important to me because I love fly fishing. That's kind of how I got initially interested in macroinvertebrates. But they're super fascinating and indicators of water quality. And there's tons of different things that I'll spare you all the details. But really, I had the entire 9th grade class come through my station, learn about water, learn about the history of water in the West, how important it is to our ecosystems. And it really was an opportunity for them to get wet. They were all wearing rubber boots, getting in the river. They had their nets. They were, collecting bugs and go, oh, look, I got one, you're like, what is that? Oh, that's a mayfly, that's a stonefly. And they were so into it. And, Sam mentioned, he remembered that from last year. So it was really fun. But what I loved most about the Western Immersion program was that kind of science experience was paired in equal parts with reflection. And we really asked them to go beyond just what they were doing in that moment and think about larger questions. This year, the theme was resilience. And, that was able to tie in really nicely with, our fragile riparian ecosystems in this state that I care a lot about. So yeah, it was wonderful, and they were smiling and laughing and having fun. And in the sun, it only hailed for a little bit, but it was really a wonderful experience. And, back at the mountain campus, they were playing games and bonding and playing the guitar and hanging out around the campfire. And it was just really, really wonderful experience for everyone involved. So it was awesome.
Yeah, and I think I had the opposite experience, not the opposite. As opposed to running a station, I worked with a specific group, so I got to rotate through all the stations. But the Western Immersion program is something that's been around for decades at Fountain Valley. It's kind of it's a rite of passage for our freshmen, and it's an experience that if you go back 20, 30 years, like one of our teachers with us, Julie Frost, she went on the Western Immersion program when she was at Fountain Valley. And she's our English teacher. And so it just really gives kids an opportunity to experience a place through all of these different lenses. They get to read, they get to write their haikus and create their watercolors at Cottonwood Pass, and they get to just sample their macroinvertebrates, and they get to go to Leadville and have a historian take them through the cemetery and kind of discuss the history of Leadville. And then we do a mining tour where you travel around to different mines and you examine kind of, the tailings and the mine shafts, and you make these observations. And it's all kind of centered around that reflection piece. And then the theme being resilience, like looking at all of these different hermeneutics or different angles of understanding through this lens of resilience. Like, what does it mean to be, a macroinvertebrate and be resilient? And Mr. McGillicuddy caught a cutthroat and shared it with us. And so we got to tell the story about some of our native fish and kind of and then understand why we do these things. And typically the teachers that lead these groups, or I should say not typically, but all the time, are people who are exceptionally passionate about whatever it is that they're teaching. And kids get to not only see these beautiful things, and I can see Sam, you're raising your hand, but they get to, or maybe you're not, they get to see these amazing places, but they get to see it with and through the eyes of their teacher, who just truly loves what they're doing, and that's its own experience.
Great, thanks. And parlaying off that, and I'll start with Sam. How do you feel that the freshman experience, that your last year experience, set you up for now your sophomore global learning experience at FVS?
Well, I think you have to think about I'm so sorry, the background noise is really loud. I'm like right behind the complex, but uh I think you have to understand where you're at in the politics of where you're at to understand global problems. Because here we get to understand the nitty-gritty of where we're at, and you can expand it to other places. We can compare the Civil War here to a civil war in a different country, or we can compare us marginalizing Native Americans to marginalizing ethnic and I'm blanking on the word, but different groups in other countries. So you can really just parallel the experiences of what it's like here versus other places. And I think that's really important to understand where you're at to be able to understand other places. There was we read a book freshman year. It was our summer reading for freshman year, and it was about this girl who her family was in a camp in Annabelle can help me out later, but they were in a separate country and we paralleled it to the US, and it was really interesting to see how we kind of did the same thing where like we got into the nitty-gritty of like what it was like for marginalized groups in America. And I hadn't learned of any of it before. I come from a completely public school background, and so it was really interesting to come into a place where they cared so much about understanding where you're at. And all I can really say and repeat is just like you have to understand the parallel, because without understanding the parallel, you have nothing to compare it to. So I think it's really nice to have a full understanding of this, because I can already see in my English and my history classes like how what I learned last year is helping me so far this year.
And Annabelle, being from Colorado, kind of how did what you learned freshman year, both set you up for your sophomore year global learning experience, but also how did the learning you did freshman year and the trips you took just kind of affect your overall learning and mindset?
Just the book was Farewell to Manzanar. But in terms of like learning about like things here in Colorado about like the Native American experience, or even just like the history of Colorado and how that relates to like the global perspectives. I feel like this year we're really getting into philosophies and talking about different types of government. And I think it was really interesting that we got to see last year how the US used its form of government and how it kind of relates to our sophomore years, like ancient forms of government. You get to see how things like as small as like the Transcontinental Railroad and how it cross route across the West, and how different people like interacted with one another's, and like how Chinese immigrants thought to boil their water so that they would, not get diseases like the Irish immigrants did. Like those type of things kind of relate to when you're learning about different things in ancient Greece and in ancient China and ancient Japan and et cetera, et cetera. I just think it was really interesting to see that, things that I would have never thought would have related to other aspects of my curriculum kind of do. And we talked before, our summer homework was talking about Haiti and just slave trade and like what the French's role in Haiti. And I kind of found that the Native American curriculum that we learned about related to Haiti, and we kind of delved into the whole aspects of civilized and what we consider civilized and uncivilized. And that kind of relates to all aspects of the world, whether that's, all the way down in the south of France or, in the US back then. And I just think that, also like as somebody who's from Colorado, I think that it's really like integral to growing as a human being, knowing where you come from and what was there before you were there, and understanding how we as a society can grow and make sure that we are better than our past selves and, the people before us. And I think that like the Sand Creek Massacre, if that taught me anything, it taught me how, we're all human, and, that we come from places, and when we just walk across like a place of land, like there's some really horrible, tragic events that could take place there, and there's some beautiful events that could take place there. But you just have to, know your roots.
Great. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's definitely something that you have to understand. And I think that's something our curriculum does really well. Now, Jessica, since you're, coordinator and you kind of work with all the faculty and such, talk a little bit about, we're talking about how things go in science, how things go in history, all this. So talk a little bit about how what we do in the 9th grade curriculum permeates all subjects and how the faculty all works together on it to develop a wholesale curriculum.
Yeah, there's We have, so you saw in Alex's mountain diagram, we have this building curriculum and we start with place and this idea of being a good local citizen to become a good global citizen. And then, as, freshmen and, after they enter freshman year, 6 months later, they're almost a different student, like with their ability to be a student and do research. And so there's kind of this increasing of complexity of content across each of the grades as we move through different themes, kind of moving kids from this local, this is what's within our grasp. And I think Annabelle and Sam both kind of captured this idea of that sense of place and that truly understanding your relationship to your your location. And then we move into the global curriculum, and there's another program called Interim, which comes in the spring, and each of the grade curriculums has a specific designated interim destination, which I can't reveal here because I'm not supposed to tell any students. So the freshmen have a very specific locally based adventure sports, outdoor like sports experiences and nature experiences and horseback riding and rock climbing and all the things that we do here in Colorado. And then the sophomores have this global curriculum, and then they end their year by going out into the globe without too much detail. And then the juniors have this leadership curriculum. So, as they become older, they take on more responsibility, their content becomes more complex, and the skills that we're working on becomes more complex. And then they go into their senior year with the capstone project. We have students getting the GSD, the Global Scholars Diploma. So they spend an entire semester learning like almost like master's level research skills, like what you would learn in a sociology course, and then gathering data and asking their own questions and trying to find their own answers. So there's a kind of this ongoing like release of responsibility. The kids become more independent and more research centered. And the questions they ask go increase in complexity across those themes. Does that sound about right? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I'm good
I
with
can
that.
ramble on this. Yeah,
Yeah.
Kian,
No,
feel
And
free to add.
no,
I'm
Kian,
not
that's
probably
I
something
just
you
missing
can
want to
add
add on a much more immediate level, just as a member of the 9th grade team, we meet very frequently and we talk about what's going on in each other's classes and really look for opportunities to make connections. We actually have one tomorrow. So we're going to be chatting, kind of debriefing the Western Immersion program and looking ahead. But an example of something that we're doing this year that kind of is a really great thematic connection, but we're not necessarily planning out direct lessons that are synced up, is we are going to be learning about the prairie ecosystem. And the big focus for kind of the final project of the first semester is all about buffalo. And buffalo as a really important species on the Western Plains. And in English class, they're reading about the West. It's hard to read anything about the West without reading about buffalo. And in history class, I'm sure Sam and Annabelle can talk about it. They talk about buffalo a lot, right? Because buffalo were hugely important culturally, economically, as a symbol of the West. And so, yeah, that's just an example of one way where we are able to kind of choose larger thematic connections between the different departments and then kind of run from there. And it gives us a really, really great ability to be flexible and do what we want to do in our departments and cover the essential skills that they need to have while still having themes be reinforced, across departments. So that's, kind of a way that we work together, and the 9th grade team is awesome. It's really fun to work with. So
Great, thanks. And we have a question that kind of relates because we're talking about just how the curriculum's built and how the classes are built. And I'm actually going to pitch this to one of the students. So the question is your curriculum organized via blocks? So, and the answer is yes, we do have a block schedule. And either Sam or Annabelle, if you want to kind of run through what like a typical day, typical week schedule looks like. Sam, you want to do it? Go for it.
I can say it in the terms of a border, but a lot applies to Dason as well. So we have red weeks and gray weeks, and our days start at 8:30 and they end at 5:15. So we have hour and 70-minute blocks, so an hour and 10-minute blocks. And we have 4 classes a day on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And on Tuesday, we have 5 classes a week. That way we get to meet 3 times with our teachers throughout the week. So we never miss out on a class. So Red Week would go A, B, C, D, and then Tuesday would be E, F, G, A, B, and then so on and so forth. And then Gray Week just goes backwards, so it'll go G, E, and all the way through. And so that's kind of how that works. And so we tend to have, I'll give a Monday, for example. So we have open gym on campus, which I definitely take a part in. So I wake up at 6 in the morning usually, get ready. And then from 7 to 8, I go to the gym, I get ready. And then at class, I go at 8:30. And then I have my first class of the day. And then we meet for all school, where we all meet in the chapel and talk about like campus events and stuff like that. And teachers can talk about important topics. And then after that, we have our second class of the day. And then after that, we have lunch. And then after lunch, we have our last 2 class periods. And then our sports. So our last class will end at 2:15, or no, 3:15, and our sports will start at 3:30. And then at 5:15 is like the let out time, and then dinner, and then we have check-in in the dorms at 7 o'clock.
So in Annabelle being a day student, because I know we have at least 2 people on the call that I can see that would be potential day students, talk a little bit about what the difference is for you, and then what your bookend schedule looks like, and how you can take part in things that even the boarding students can.
I have roughly a similar schedule to Sam, except for I have a bus that comes for me. I have to be at the bus stop at 7:32, and then we leave. And we have one other bus stop, but I think there's like 4 on my route. And I get to school around like 8:05 on a good day, sometimes 8. And then after that, I go to my I'm a library girl, so I like to hang out in the library, do my homework in the morning right before school starts. But I mean, I could also go to like the CC, which is our campus center, or breakfast. And then I go off to my classes, and then during lunchtime, I'm either in the library or at lunch, or I like to hang out in the dorm a lot. I'm in Sage East. And to the 2-day students, I feel very welcome in my dorm. I hang out all the time. I'm in there, if I'm just, bored or I have free time, it's awesome. You would love the dorm. And then after my afternoon classes, I go to the gym. I have my own locker. So for the sports that I do, I put my stuff in there and get dressed and get changed. Then I go to sports, and then the bus leaves at 5:50, so you can go have dinner before you take the bus, or don't, go to campus center, and then I leave.
Great. Cool. Thanks. Appreciate that. So we have about 5 minutes left here, but I do want to get to one thing definitely, because as we all met as a group and we were talking about this, Sam brought up the idea of you don't know what you don't know, and how that was learned last year. And I want Sam and then whoever else wants to pitch in to talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so I got this term from Miss Smith, who got it from Sandoval, one of the great history teachers on campus. I was told I had to say that. But the whole term is you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know, and you know what you don't know. So in terms of like the things we learned, I knew what I knew. I knew from previous experience and stuff I've had about Native Americans what that was like. I knew that Buffalo were massacred. I had that idea in my mind. I didn't know that I didn't know how it happened, at what rate it happened, how many tribes were affected, the culture of individual tribes, stuff like that. So it was really interesting to understand that topic, because all of our classes are so intertwined. Like the books in my English class will relate to books in my science class, or what's being taught in my science class. And that's based on place of what I'm learning in my history class. So everything really comes together nice and neatly, and it's really cool to see how they intertwine and show you what you don't know. So it's just, and like, long story short, I knew about Native Americans. I didn't know that I didn't know what happened to them completely. And I knew that I didn't know what happened to them completely. Like, in terms of like, those are the two same statements, but I knew that I didn't know what happened, but I didn't know that I didn't know like a lot of the nitty-gritty details that we got to learn.
Kind of a fun way to put that around too, because you can really confuse people by talking that around. Does anybody else want to pitch in on that, or anyone else have? Yeah, Annabelle.
I feel like I talked a lot about history, but also ecology. I did not know anything about wolf reintroduction in Colorado, and I live here, which is sad. But I didn't even know there was a law that was getting, people were voting on or any of that type of stuff. And I didn't even know what wolves would do to ecosystem. I just was like, oh, they're like coyotes. But then you really dive deep and you get into like wolf reintroduction in Yellowstone and how it affects the ecosystem and mule deer populations and diseases and control. Like you get really deep into it and you realize like, oh, I totally should have understood this. Like if I was 18, I would have to be like voting on this, and I had no idea what even like the difference between wolves and coyotes were. And so, I think that it's really interesting that like our school, like talks about the things that nobody else talks about. And we honestly like need to know like real world. And I got to learn all about like ecosystems and climate change and everything in just like a small little section of class. And we even delved deeper into our ecosystems in like the prairie and everything. And I think it was just really cool that we used our like real world life experiences and applied them to like a scientific field.
Yes, go ahead, Jessica.
I just wanted to add, we had a speaker join us yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And he was talking to us about the future. He's a consultant about the future. And Key and I felt pretty validated when he said, like, learning systems and having a systems-based education is probably one of the single greatest critical thinking skills you can give to give a student. And I think kind of to connect it back to what Sam and Annabelle are talking about is using that systems-based learning to find where your blind spots are. Like, what is the thing I don't know? And sometimes you can start to see where it might exist when you can look at everything in the context of a system.
That's great. Yeah, thanks so much for everyone for sharing. And as we hit up time here, thanks to all the panelists and thanks to everyone who is also attending for taking time out of your day to be able to, spend some of it with us. And as this is an admissions thing, I do want to point out how you would apply to the school. If you're looking to apply, if you're here, you've already inquired, so that's a good first step. We have, 2 application cycles. Early action cycle gives you the best chance at everything. And those application deadlines are December 15th with a financial aid deadline of December 30th. And then the admissions office and the committees meet and they kick back answers to admissions decisions in January, by January 10th. So you could know by January 10th whether you're going to attend Fountain Valley or not. There's also a regular admissions, which is February 1st is the deadline for that. This is all online, fvs.edu/apply. And then the only other thing, as we kind of watch this video here of, just sort of a flyover of campus, this is our 1,100-acre campus in Colorado Springs. We call it's on the prairie with our 70 horses, athletic center, 10 dorms. We have a chapel on campus. We're not religious, but we have a chapel, which is our main meeting place. Beautiful dining hall, tennis courts, all kinds of great stuff. So you can come visit whenever you want. You can book a tour at www.fvs.edu/visit, or you can also come to our open house, which is on October 18th. And then also in October, like I said, is the 10th grade curriculum, which for some of you might be a little bit advanced, but it's always good to see it and see the entire piece. But thank you everyone for attending. We really appreciate it and have a great rest of your evening.